Right, the following video is an extract from a Zoom call that I hosted for some children, 6 to 8 year olds, talking about awareness of hedgehogs, how they can help hedgehogs, reasons for the decline, facts and figures and things like that, and gave them some challenges on drawing a hedgehog and making a hedgehog house and what they can do in their garden to help hedgehogs. And at the end of it, they absolutely grilled me with some fantastic questions, and this is the recording, the voice recording of those questions and my answers to them. Most of the answers are right, of course some of them are slightly wrong, but the majority of it's right. So yeah, enjoy this this video. Thank you very much. That's an excellent question. Now, the best thing I would suggest actually is to make a hole in the fence, a small round hole, a 13cm hole in 1 or 2 places. And what that will do is it will allow the hedgehog to freely gain access to come into your garden. If there's no way into your garden, you'll never see a hedgehog. That's the best thing you can do. Another thing you can do is maybe make some of the garden a little bit untidy. Make it overgrown a bit. Maybe don't cut the grass at the end of the garden, or maybe plant some bushes or hedges, and stack up piles of twigs and leaves, and that will make sure that when a hedgehog does come into your garden, it will find it a great place to stay, and hopefully it will end up nesting there. So it's a good way of attracting them. But also you can put food out for the hedgehogs as well, but make sure you use a feeding station, because all that will happen if you don't use a feeding station, a plastic tub and a hole, is you'll end up feeding the local cats. You definitely need a feeding station then. So what I would do is, if you go to our website, there is a link, and there's actually a plan on how to make a hedgehog feeding station, and that will make sure no cats, no dogs, no foxes or badgers or any large mammals will eat the food you put out specifically for your hedgehog. Normally they can't. It all depends if they're baby cats. Normally they can't. They struggle. But if they can still get in though, what you can do is you can make it a little bit more complicated, the feeding station, and you can create a tunnel into the feeding station, and that will be fine for hedgehogs, and that will definitely stop the cats. Good question. They're not rodents, no. They're not related to that side. They're actually they've been in the country, in the UK, or even the world, for a long time, a long time. So the species of hedgehogs, we don't actually know how many hedgehogs, different types or species they are, but there's about 17 different species of them. But the European hedgehog, or the British hedgehog, is actually unique to this country. So no, it's not directly related to a rat or something like that. That's a really good question. So actually, when I was younger, when I was your age, I used to see hedgehogs all the time. And also, a lot of the time, unfortunately, we'd see lots of hedgehogs when I was younger on the road, and they were actually killed by cars. Now we don't see that many hedgehogs, and there's lots of reasons for that. But the main reason why we haven't got as many hedgehogs now as we did when I was younger is because of people. Not directly people, but the things that people do. That maybe someone, when you've got cars, they build roads, they build big walls and fences, big fortresses. And what ends up happening is a lot of the wildlife, they get separated, or what we call siloed, little areas of wildlife, and they're not able to travel to all the places they used to. And quite a lot of the time, their habitats, or where they actually live, is being destroyed. And particularly for hedgehogs, as in their name, a hedgehog, they love hedges. And a lot of the hedges we've got, they either are not maintained, or they're actually, we lose the hedgehogs because they want bigger fields, or maybe more houses and things like that. So a lot of the hedges are actually disappearing. Or if a hedge isn't maintained and trimmed and cut every year, they end up turning into trees. And the trees are fine, but actually hedges are much better for hedgehogs. So it's mainly to do with people, but also to do with poisons and things like that. So it's the creation of things that people have done, but also rubbish, lots of rubbish and everything like that. Lots of rubbish gets thrown out and they get trapped in hedgehogs. Lots of traps have been created for hedgehogs that didn't exist in the past. Ah. Now, the thing with rats is, if you wanted to feed a hedgehog or attract a hedgehog, and if there were rats there, then rats would come and eat the food. But normally, it's nothing to do with feeding a hedgehog or putting food out. Normally, you get rats in places because of some reason. So normally, you'll get rats if you're near a river, or maybe you're near a big rubbish pile or something like that, and it attracts the rats. But just by helping the hedgehogs out with food and things like that won't attract the rats. They will eat it if they're there, but the problem with rats is it's not going to make any difference you helping the hedgehogs to attract rats. What will end up happening is the actual rats are there for some reason, and it's normally because of rubbish or water. Rats are very attracted to water, rivers and things like that. That's a good question. So, if a hedgehog was running away from me at top speed, I think I would be able to keep up with it, especially if I was running. So they're not as fast as dogs, definitely not, but they're pretty fast. I'd say on a scale of what animals you can compare the speed of a hedgehog to, their burst speed or the fastest speed, it's probably going to be something like a rabbit or something like that. So they're really fast. So they shoot off and they scurry off really fast, but they can only do that for a short time. They can't run like that all the time. They've got a high burst speed and then they slow down a bit. So if they get scared, they're pretty quick to get away. So they're very hard. So it's if I was trying to rescue a hedgehog and it was trying to get away from me, I'd have a hard job catching it. That's an excellent question. So normally they're called their litters, a litter of babies. They can have anything up to 8 or 10 actually, but normally it's about 6-ish, maybe 5 or 6-ish, something like that. But the problem with what ends up happening is a lot of the time out of that litter of 6, only 3 or 2, maybe 2 or 3 will actually survive. And that's because of a lot of the time, hedgehogs, when they're having their litters, there's something wrong with them, but also the hedgehogs are not very good mums. And so if they get disturbed by a noise, or maybe if there's a small amount of hedgehogs with a mum and someone disturbs them with maybe looking at the hedgehogs, the mum will run off and won't come back again. And so the actual hoglets or the baby hedgehogs become orphaned and then they need a rescue. So it's very bad. You've got to make sure, if you ever do know, if you have hedgehogs in your garden that have baby hedgehogs, hoglets, to leave them alone and let them be. Because if you disturb them, what ends up happening, it could happen, is a mum will run off and not come back and they will die. But normally, 3 or 4 is a good litter for survival, but 5 is a normal size that you will actually have. Brilliant question. So they do actually have one predator, and that is a badger. So badgers are the only predator the only animal out there that can actually eat a hedgehog, and it's because badgers have big, massive claws on their feet, and and with those claws, they're extremely strong. So unfortunately, a hedgehog is no match for a badger. That's the only predator they have in this country. But foxes can often nip the legs of a hedgehog when they're running away. Dogs can also hurt hedgehogs as well, some dogs, but it's very dangerous for any other animal to try and hurt a hedgehog because of the spines on them. But yeah, the only predator we have in this country for hedgehogs is badgers. But they also live together quite happily. It's not the reason why hedgehogs are in big decline, because what ends up happening with badgers and hedgehogs is they eat the same food. They eat what they call invertebrates, bugs and beetles. They eat the same food, so they compete for the same food. So if a hedgehog knows there's a badger in the same area, the hedgehog will just move on and leave the badger be, or will walk around where the badger sects are, where they actually live. So, what we do at the sanctuary is we feed them. It would take me probably a week, 2 weeks, with a bucket and spade to dig up enough worms and bugs to feed one hedgehog. So I just can't do it. So what we do is we feed them jelly-based dog or cat food. It's much easier. Now, when we feed a hedgehog, normally the hedgehog won't come out, and you will never see the hedgehog. But the most important thing when I'm feeding hedgehogs is to wear gloves. So I make sure I wear gloves. And normally we feed them jelly-based dog or cat food, but sometimes it's also good to feed them hedgehog food. And the reason why that is because hedgehog food is a dried biscuit. So we can leave hedgehog food out for a long time outside and it won't go bad. The problem with the jelly-based dog or cat food is, especially in summertime when it's really warm, it goes bad. So every day we have to change the food. But the actual biscuits of hedgehog biscuits, you can leave them out there for as long as you want. As long as it's dry, it doesn't get wet, then you can leave it out there. Does that... I don't know hamsters and guinea pigs. I don't think they eat the same food. So I don't think a hamster or guinea pig will probably be that interested in the food you put out for it. But normally, hamsters and guinea pigs, they're pets. And normally you wouldn't see those out in the wild. They're pets. Whereas a hedgehog is not a pet. A wild hedgehog is not a pet. And you can't have them as pets. So normally those two things will never see each other. But if they ever met each other, I would think probably one or the other, the hedgehog would run away or the hamster would run away, something like that. Often, what I do see is mice, field mice, voles and things like that, and they eat the food, the same hedgehog food together, and they're quite happy. But it all depends. So I have seen videos of foxes coming along and eating the food put out for hedgehogs. And what the hedgehog does is it sits by the food, curled into a ball, and it just waits for the fox to go, and then it will uncurl and then come out and eat the food. A hedge. Oh, that is fantastic. So hedges are probably one of the best things you can do for a hedgehog when you plant something. And it's a good idea actually to put it by a fence because it provides a cover for wind. So wind actually, fences block a lot of wind. So hedges are brilliant. And if you can plant as many hedges as you can, that's absolutely amazing. But don't forget, with hedges, obviously when the leaves fall down, it's probably best not to clean all the leaves up. Maybe leave some of the leaves in the hedges when they do fall off at some times of the year, because those leaves are really useful for hedge.